Welcome back to East Coast DNA. Today's guest we have it's Clever Hopes is the featured artist, but Andrew Shaver we have here today. And Andrew, the first question right off the bat,
Yeah,
the name Clever Hopes, is
yeah,
it like that refers to you as your artist name more
does.
so than it being a band name?
It's both,
Yeah,
it's like slow leaves, it's like Bahamas, I guess, in some way,
yeah,
shaky graves, that world.
yeah.
So it's me regardless of whether I'm solo or playing with 100 people, which I don't think I'll ever do, but I mean maybe the day will come when I get to play with 100 people. But yeah, it's the artist name and the band name all wrapped up into one.
And I wanted to mention the name Andrew Shaver as well because you've also you have your fingers in a lot of different aspects of I guess the arts world.
Yeah, I
Um,
do. Yeah.
so you originally are from, is it Montreal that you're from originally?
No, but Montreal is like where I spent the most time in my life.
Okay.
So I moved around a lot through my childhood, my adolescence, into my adulthood as well. When the choice was then mine, but when as I was a kid and a teenager, I just went where we went as a family, and so I was born in Calgary, and then was living in Calgary again by the time I was 12, having moved to Thornhill, Ontario, Dorval, Quebec, Oakville, Ontario. And then from Calgary, we went to England for grade 7, grade 8 and 9 in Chicago, graduated high school just outside of Philly, went to Queens, so came back to Canada for university because who can afford university in the States? And Not that it's much better now these days, I think, in Canada. Then I went to Paris for a couple of years to go to a theater school, a clown school. I have a feeling that Zach Galifianakis is making fun of this clown school, or at least part of it. Part of what he's doing on Baskets is making fun of that school.
Oh wow.
In For a couple of years, I went there, and then I moved to Montreal. So I moved to Montreal when I was 24 or 5, and then lived there for a really good solid chunk of my life. Had a relationship explode, licked my wounds in Toronto, surrounded by friends. Met the woman with whom now have a child, and we moved here a couple of years ago, across the street from my sister.
Wow.
Yeah,
So great to have you here in Nova Scotia. What was the reason for all the travel? Like aside from your own artistic endeavors and looking for knowledge,
yeah,
like in your early years, like a
yeah.
military child or career criminals or
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd think that's it's usually like military, no, like witness protection.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
neither. Career criminals is good. My dad is a chemical engineer and still still
Ah,
still works. He just
yeah.
he just got, but he's turning 80 in July, and he just spent 12 days in Puerto Rico. We spent a lot of it on the beach or in the casino playing blackjack, but the trip was to go work. And
Yeah.
he's still working, and that's all it was. Like he was taking new jobs, he was getting headhunted, he was, and we were moving around. And I loved it, man. I really loved it. And then I think I got the bug for it, and that's what happened in my adult life. I sort of skipped through. I was like in Montreal for a long time, but there were lots of internal moves. I have
Sure,
a
yeah.
hard time. I have a hard time staying still, and I think that's from growing up the way we did. Yeah, for sure.
And so landing in Nova Scotia, the timing of it allowed
Yeah,
you some time to kind of dive into whatever you felt like doing as long as it involved being around a limited number of people and
one hundred
keeping
percent,
away from
man.
public spaces.
100%. Yeah.
So you're another one of the many over the last like 3 years, I guess,
Oh
have been doing
God.
this. So you're
Yeah.
one of the many artistic endeavors that was kind of birthed out of that era.
Yeah.
So your debut album, I guess, would have been 2022.
It was exactly. You got it.
So is that a different collection of musicians than working on the latest album?
Partially.
Yeah.
Yeah. I retained like a core of that original crew. Most notably, Matt Barber, who produced and mixed the first album, he came in from Toronto. Eva Foote, who shares all the vocals, she came in from Toronto. And then my bud Joe Grass, who played the electric guitar and the pedal steel and some acoustic stuff on the first album. I was not going to do an album without him. And so he came in from Montreal. And then I thought it was really important to meet some musicians here. I mean, I think it would have been really stupid of me to just bring in people from Montreal and Toronto to record an album in my new city.
Yes.
And so yes, you agree 100%. And so yeah, I spent 3 days at Fang, just like literally down the road from me on Portland Street. And yeah, Kyle Kunjak and kind of people that don't even really need an introduction around here or elsewhere. Let's be honest. Kyle Kunjak on bass, Joshua Van Tassel on drums, and then Afi Irvinen plays guitar on this album. And so, you know, if you're listening in headphones, you got Afi in your left ear and you got Joe in your right on the guitars.
Cool. So I'm
Yeah,
curious too, and I'm gonna write just acknowledge I don't spend a lot of time in Dartmouth.
yeah.
So I do know of Morley's
Oh, you do, eh?
And
Yeah,
Fang, but like in my head, it's built up quite big because I've never been there. So
yeah,
I'm
right.
curious. There's a record shop there and a
There is.
coffee shop there, and
Yeah.
then the recording studio, which
Yeah,
is
you skip Friction Books. So there's a
okay
bookstore
with
too.
there, yeah.
Yeah, man.
So that's the
Yeah.
inside scoop I'm looking for. Like that's not a stop in for 5 minutes. Like that's an afternoon drop in.
Yeah, man, I've had full mornings get away
Yeah,
from me there. You know,
I
I
can
go in
imagine.
for a quick coffee and I'm missing 3, 4 subsequent ferries because I'm chatting with Brendan or Alexander Gallant, who's an incredible songwriter. He slings coffee there as well. And then it's just it's sort of the cheers of my life,
Yeah,
here. And I think for a lot of people. And so yeah, it has a mythology built up around it, and I think rightfully so.
sure.
I think it's a really terrific like play cultural epicenter in the city. Yeah, there's lots of interesting people coming in and out of it, and having a sort of a multitude of creative conversations. And sometimes you just come in, you get a coffee, and you go. And that's cool too. But yeah, I so it meant a lot to me to be able to record this album in the back, because Fang
Mhm.
Studio, Joel Studios, in the back of that building at 45 Portland.
And now I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you were
Okay,
able to kind of get into the local community because of proximity and being able to have a place like that that you
yeah,
can hang around. You're going to meet the right
totally,
people for what you're looking to do. But the other musicians that you mentioned, like as you
yeah,
said, they don't really need individually introductions. Some of
no,
those are known names.
yeah,
I don't know all of them personally, but a few of them definitely jumped out to me as soon as I saw them listed. I'm
sure,
curious, are those contacts that you had, being that your musical career's more recent,
yeah.
are those musical connections you had because you were already a singer-songwriter just with nothing recorded? Or is it from
Right,
your other, because you do
right,
radio and you've
yeah,
done like television and movies and
sure.
like you've done everything.
Well, I don't know
So
about everything, but I've done a little bit of a little bit of a lot, let's say. Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
see anything about dancing yet, so maybe I'll have to
I'm
catch
not
one
a
of these
dancer,
shows.
man. No, but I
There you
but I
go.
went to a physical theater school and moved in an abstract
Okay, well
way,
there you
if
go.
that counts.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of like my connections to these guys,
Mhm.
I to answer one of your questions that was in there, I'm not a secret singer songwriter who had never recorded anything. I had fiddled around for sure
Okay.
through the years, and I've got a lot of buddies who, and I have had a lot of buddies and continue to have, well, even more now that I'm doing it, musicians and songwriters. And so there came a point in my life where I was like, this isn't for me. I do the other things. I don't write the songs. My buddies write the songs. But what I'll tell you, what I will do, I'll produce a concert series, uh, and you can come play it. And that's how I met Afi like 15 years ago. I was
Cool.
acting at the Stratford Theatre Festival in Ontario, and I was living in a loft, and I was like, I need to make this into a concert venue.
Mhm.
And so I launched it with Matt Barber, who's my oldest pal, and his sister Jill. They came and got it out of the gates. And then what happens is, uh, then I meet people through them, and then I become friends with those people, and then their
Yeah.
friends. That the concentric rings of Canadian musicians. It starts to sort of just take place, and so over the years I'd met Kyle Kunjak because I brought David Miles into play in Stratford, and Kyle was playing bass with David at the time. I'd never met Josh Van Tassel, but he had played drums with my buddy Noah Reed. And when I asked, Noah plays on my first album, he couldn't come out to this one. And when I was talking about that to him, I was like, and I want to find a drummer out here. And he's like, well, obviously it's Josh Van Tassel. I'll connect you. And so then you're only ever, it feels like you're only ever just like half a degree removed from anybody in the Canadian music scene at that point. Whether they're going to do the thing with you or not, it remains to be seen. But it's not that difficult to get the question, to put the ask on the table.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
And you obviously have some good interpersonal connections with those people because it
I
sounds
do. I
like
do. It helps.
your ass are getting received well. Like people are
Yeah,
actually
yeah. So
participating with
far,
you.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah, I won't tell you the stories about all the people that told me to go shove it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
That's
I'm kind of relating a little bit like the way you and I met in person.
right.
We
Yeah,
had PR people involved that would have done the introduction and were going to do the
that's
introduction, but
right.
we also organically met because we were both doing media behind the
Yeah,
scenes and
you got
just
it.
organic introductions to each other.
You got it. I mean, I was going to say I prefer that. I mean, I do, which is not to dismiss the work that
Sure.
our individual publicists and PR people do. I think the world of Beth Kavanaugh, who connected me originally to you, and
Hmm.
then, like you said, I met you at the back in the media room at the UCMAs, and
Yeah.
here we are. Yeah,
It's amazing. And I do know that 2, 3 steps from meeting
yeah,
somebody, you end up, oh
totally.
wow, like I know so many people now.
That's right.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
100% you do. Yeah,
So when you got ready to record a new album, like the one
yeah.
that you're talking about right now, is it a big transition to get new players in, or was it like, did you have
Mm,
songs written and you're like, hey guys, who wants to come back to the party? I have new
mm,
songs,
mm.
or yeah, how
Yeah.
did that come about?
I mean, I did because I have um, I said earlier it would have been remiss of me to bring everybody in to record an album out east. That said, I have this sort of like streak of loyalty, and I those the gang that came in to record that first album with me. We never really even got to tour it, so like we've never even played it live together. Elements of the band have, like, components we've played, but so anyways, it really sort of irked me to think about not going back to them to at least ask if they wanted to play.
Mhm.
um and so I was quite conflicted by that, because yeah, a big part of me was like, no, I think I need to meet some people out here, and if I ever want to play shows out here, I'm not going to be bringing these guys in from out west from Toronto. So yeah, I had the conversations that I needed to have with the people that um I made the decision that I was bringing Eva back, obviously,
Mhm.
because she's such a huge part of Clever Hopes. Matt back to produce and mix and produce, and then Joe was like, those are the players. And then I had the conversations I needed to have with the others, and then approach the folks that I approached. Yeah, and then I guess I should say, Kev Foreign on both albums has overdubbed the horns from Dublin, and on this album, Steve O'Connor plays the keys. And he overdubbed that from Port Hope, Ontario, after the fact. That's a Matt Barber. Steve is a Matt Barber connection.
Cool.
Yeah,
So when you're getting ready to do performances off this album, and I mean, we'll get into the specifics of that because you do
sure.
have an album release party coming up.
Do
But do you have the same performers for your live show?
some. Yeah, I again, I put the question out to
Hmm.
the entire band. Some who recorded it, some of whom, like I said, are in Montreal or in Toronto, and it's like, well, sorry, man, I can't get to Dartmouth for a one night
Yeah,
thing,
absolutely.
which is totally understandable. And I was like, well, I just wanted to ask. But then Kyle and Josh, they're here, so yeah, they were excited. I basically said I want to play a show with you guys. And I put it out to Afi as well, but he's on tour. And I said to Josh and Kyle, what's the best timeline for you, kind of within a month and a half or so of the album actual release, which was May 3rd. And then they gave me a window. And then I looked around at venues, and I love the Sanctuary Arts Center,
Mhm.
both spaces. I really, really like the downstairs space. Um, and they were available. It was available on a day within that window, and so I locked it in. And then so I knew I would have the rhythm section. I knew I'd have Kyle and Josh, but Joe couldn't make it and Afi couldn't make it, and I was like, well, we need someone else. And I hadn't really, I'd hung out just sort of briefly with Daniel Ledwell at one point prior to me just straight up going, "Hey Daniel, would you be interested in like playing keys and or guitar and or trumpet and or pedal steel?" And he was like, "I think I could do that." And so I was like, "Okay, great, that's the band. That's what I needed. That's the four piece I needed." And then Dan is married to Jen Grant, and Jen caught wind of it and listened to the album, and then wrote me and was like, so is this one, is Eva coming in to sing? I was like, she's not. She's like, well, I can sing some harmonies. And I was like, yeah, you can sing some harmonies. So yeah, Jen is going to be popping up with us as well. And
Ah,
then through Jen, I got in touch with Kim Harris to play the opening set, and then there we are. And then like basically that's Jen's band,
yeah.
was short of Margot, who might be there. I hope, I don't know, because I sing in a choir with Margot
Okay.
and the Pamela Hart Forever chorus, and I've asked. We're seeing if maybe the choir can come and sing, and we've learned ceasefire. We've learned Jen's ceasefire. So if Jen's there with her band and then the choir's there, it could be we could do a big old rockin' choral band ceasefire number, which would be pretty special. So
That's a
it's
lot of
got the
potential.
makings. It's got a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
potential to it. Exactly, exactly.
And that's a more the specific performance, like you said, it's in the basement area there. So
Yeah, you got
it's
it.
a more
Yeah,
intimate performance
yeah.
than you'll get on the bigger stage.
Yeah, I love that stage
Mhm.
upstairs, but undeniably it's more intimate. And you know, you use the B word and basement, and they call it the basement, and I've taken it sort of upon myself with this album release show to also launch a campaign to try to change the nomenclature of that space from basement to at least downstairs at the sanctuary, or as Brendan Morley, the aforementioned, eponymous Morley of Morley's Coffee, he said when I was talking to him about this, I was like, that you can't call it a basement. That's got all the wrong connotations because the space is so beautiful. And he said, yeah, I went there with Joel with Plaskett, and all the tables had little candles on them. And he said, this place should be called the Candlelight. And so I've I don't know, on the promotional material, I've said the Sanctuary Arts Center downstairs in the Candlelight. So that's a bit of a
I
tip of
guess.
the hat to what Plaskett called it. Yeah.
Well, there's enough. I mean, between us and everyone that we know, if we can get everyone else saying it, they're
Just
not
say
going
it.
to
That's
have a
it.
choice. Like that's just it. So
That's just how we're going to
that's
come to know it.
that's notice for everyone out there. Just update your posters for the future.
Get on board or get left behind.
And now I'm kind of dating myself here with this. When you say that description,
Yeah.
I'm actually picturing from my past Cafe Olay used to
Right.
be an all ages club downtown and in Halifax. And I remember going there to shows that were candlelit, like every table had lit a
Right.
candle.
Right.
So it's
Uh,
that same kind of intimate feeling, and it's
yeah.
nice.
it's a beautiful space. I love that kind of show, and I love that kind of venue. And I know that there and I was never there. I feel like there was a venue in Halifax called the Candlelight as well.
Oh,
Is
there
that
may have
right?
been another one too. Yeah,
Okay,
I've
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, maybe it was Cafe au lait, and maybe that's what they people referred to it as the
I
Candlelight. I don't
I've
know.
had ebbs and flows in and out of the Halifax music scene. I
Oh, I
have
see. Yeah.
had different
Where are
eras
you
of my
now?
life. I'm
Where do you live? You're in
Pictou County, just
Pictou.
you know, the Jubilee
Yeah.
that's coming up here. That's
Yeah.
probably our biggest music event here. But
Yeah. 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 Cool.
solid music community here too. I'm sure.
Sure. My buddy Wayne Nicholson, blues man, is
Oh
from
yeah,
Pictou.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
him a
Yeah.
few
Yeah.
times.
Oh,
That's
great.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. He and I do our radio shows bump up. I
Ah,
open for him basically. I go nine
okay.
thirty to 11, and he goes 11 to noon on Cove. Yeah.
Cool. And well, actually, that's a good segue. I wanted to get into that too. Like outside of the Clever Hopes endeavor,
Hmm.
what else are you actively doing? I'm sure we could probably do
Yeah.
3 or 4 episodes on what you've done,
Oh
but
God.
yeah,
I don't know if anyone wants to listen to that, Darcy.
sure, sure. I
Yeah.
maybe we'll get some coffee at Morley someday if
Yeah,
I'm
there
up
you
in the
go. I'm into
Dartmouth
that.
area. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, what are you actively doing? You're on Cove Radio?
Yeah, yeah. I've got the weekly show When We Wake on Cove, which is 88.7 on the FM band on the South Shore, and that showcases new Canadian kind of indie singer songwriter, indie folk rock music, and I interview. I do interviews like you, like kind of long form interviews for broadcast, and then I also package them as a podcast.
Mhm.
The interviews only called When We Wake with Andrew Shaver. Um, and so that I put a lot of time into that. I love this. I love what we're doing right now. I love being in your seat. It's rare that it's me answering all the questions. And that brings me all sorts of joy. But I'm acting again as well. There's a theater festival coming up in Dartmouth called the Stages Festival that Eastern Front puts together down at Alderney Landing. And I think it's June 5 to 9. And I'm acting in a show on the 9th of June called Q&A, which is it's very funny. My buddy Joe Cobden, who he's one of the more brilliant people in my life. He originally from Halifax. He and I met in Montreal, God, 20 years ago, acting in that Dylan film that Todd Haynes
Cool.
did, the I'm Not There. And Joe and I became buds and have remained close ever since, and have sort of crossed paths as our careers have gone on. He had this idea years ago, 5 6 years ago now, where he wanted to put a play, make a play, and now we've done it. That is called Q&A. That basically presupposes that the audience has seen a play, and in theater often you have these Q&As after plays,
Hmm.
but there is no play before, so the audience is coming into a Q&A session for a play they have not seen, uh, and it's really funny. It's got Mary Faye Cody, Paul Rainville, and Ella McDonald in it, and so we're doing that. So actively we're doing that, and I'm giving a keynote address at this theater festival on the Saturday morning, which is the thing that makes me the most anxious in the world. I'm when it like I'm okay talking. I like
Hmm.
talking, but I didn't have to write. You didn't send me the questions beforehand.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't have the pressure of like preparing something, and then the added pressure of now that I've had time to prepare. If I fail, there's I fall further, because the perception is that I should have been able to get it ready. So this like writing a keynote speech is driving me batty, man. So those that's kind of the most active thing, I guess, right now, and trying to be a good husband and dad along the way.
I think you just identified something that I kind of characterize as
Yeah.
maybe a flaw, but we're both using it to our advantage. That
Yeah.
the less that you prepare for the conversation, the less you put on yourself for the
Yes.
expectations of the end result. It
Yes.
just makes you comfortable, and it ends up being way better than stressing out over it every
Totally,
time.
man. And then, like, if it doesn't go well, you're like, well, I mean, it didn't go well for a number of reasons, but
Yeah.
none of which are I'm responsible
Right.
for, you
Right.
know.
Exactly. Yeah. You can always say, well, I could have prepared more, but I didn't.
That's
So it
right,
went
but
well
I
for the
didn't.
amount of effort.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
got it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Amazing.
Yeah,
So the album itself, we should probably talk about that a little bit
you want
too.
to? Yeah,
Now anyone that is excited by what you're telling us with the album, the actual release date is already passed,
that's
so
right.
they can go
You can
listen to it
listen.
right now.
Yeah,
But the album release party that we were talking about, that's coming up June 22nd.
you got it. June 2 2.
Excellent. And we already mentioned it's at the Lighthouse Arts Center.
Yeah,
So
the Sanctuary Art Center.
Sanctuary Arts
The
Center.
next album will be at the
Yes.
Lighthouse Art
Oh,
Center,
there
Chris.
you go.
Yeah,
Got from
give me a
candles
third one.
candles to light.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's
Perfect.
right. You got it.
So tickets are available out there for that now.
They're at Eventbrite. Yeah,
Perfect. I'll put a link down in the description. But
sure.
yeah, the album itself, if you want to give a little description of what people can expect from the
Yeah,
music itself.
yeah, sure. We went live off the floor on this one, so it's got a really lovely vibe, you know, to it. And um, Eva and I are sharing one mic, just either sides of it, and you know, Joe and Afi and Kyle and Josh were all within sort of 15 feet of us, which made it really exciting to record that way. Probably made it a real nightmare for Matt to mix. Uh, but he produced it, so he set it up that way. So you
Mm-hmm.
know, he made your bed, you got to lie in it. And God, he made a beautiful album. He shepherded us through this with the deftest and lightest of touch, and that's what Matt does so well. And then, you know, because we're old buds, Matt and I, he was mixing it. We took our time with that, and he would just send me rough mixes, and we would go back and back and forth on that. And it's got a lovely kind of throwback feel to it, I think, in that way. Like one of the references I had going into it, I remember Josh and Tassel called the first time I spoke to him before going into the session, and just meeting and talking about the songs a little bit. And he said at the end, anything you want me to listen to, or, you know, sort of any reference, you know, that we're going for in the drums, or anything else really. And I was like, I don't think so. Kind of gets back to the what we just spoke about. Like I didn't really have the prep. I didn't do the preparation of like this is what guitar sounds I like. These are the drum sounds I like. These are the albums that, you know, I don't know. And I was like, Josh, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's a cop out to say I just kind of want to discover it all together in the room or not. If that gives you enough to go on, but I can say this: if we can like approach the vibe of like mid 70s JJ Cale, like Oki and Naturally, then I think we're on the right track. And so I think the album does have that. I think we did that. And you know, it's an 8-song album. Songs way more optimistic than Artefact. You know, Artefact was the classic breakup album. You know, well, it's an album that covers classic breakup album terrain. Let's say,
Sure.
so I don't get quoted as it's a classic breakup album. And this album, New Kind of Familiar, is it's an album of transition. You know, and it's not transition out of where I was on Artefact. It's really truly transition into where I am now. And so, you know, there's like lyrically there's a song, you know, that speaks about birth, and a song that speaks about death, and then everywhere in between, it's an album about me, you know, making the space for the big thing that has come, and you know, and making sure that it has room in my life. Yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's the kind of album I think that you can kind of put on, and it's not going to get in the way. You know,
Yeah. I've
there's that.
it's
Yeah,
it's an album that definitely I find it's something you can have on in the background where you're doing stuff.
Yeah,
But when I sit and have like the headphones on, you start getting into
right.
lyrically and stuff. You could tell that like it's coming from you're pulling from life experience. There's some
Yeah, great,
emotion pulled in there too. So
great.
it's a good listen for everyone. And with the album release party coming up, if anyone hasn't heard it, it's probably a good
There you
time to
go.
get on that and
Yeah,
then
so you can sing
pop out.
along, right?
Exactly. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a sing along type night.
Well, look, man, yeah, I think there may be some of that. Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I was gonna say who doesn't? I know there are a lot of people that don't like that. But I do. I'm a big fan of that.
Well, and I'm gonna just plug this right now, and it's not so like we've only really just met, so I it's definitely not for anyone listening. Something that's actually happening. I'm just gonna try to will it into existence.
Yeah,
You mentioned him a couple times by his actual name, but Bahamas is out there touring right now. I
yeah,
know that around the time that you would have put out your first album, there were some cancellations because things kept opening and closing. And so there were
right.
some Bahamas dates that had been canceled. I'm wondering if maybe come this fall, with you having new material out and you'll have to be doing some live support. We have Music Nova Scotia has their music week in November.
They
I,
do.
I would like to see Bahamas and Clever Hopes maybe sharing a stage, maybe back to
Jeez,
back, some
Darcy, I dig
collaboration
that.
there. But
Oh, I like that a
I'm just
lot.
I like floating the idea out there anyway. Let everyone else pick up strings from that.
You float it, you put it down, and let's see if people pick that up. Yeah, Music Week this November in Wolfville. Oh, Clever Hopes in Bahamas. You heard it here.
It sounds good anyway. So we'll
Sure
see if that
does.
happens. We'll do a follow up interview when we make it actually happen.
There you go. Great. I love
And
that.
for today, is there any particular song from the new album that you would like to play off with? Maybe to give a little description and what
Yeah.
went into the song itself.
Yeah, sure. Generally I go to Thrown It Open. But let's let's take a swing here and go with Horror's Racket, which is the song that ends the album. And that's that one. It's a love song to or a love letter, let's say, to uh, an old pal, Brian Dennehy, that I imagine a lot of the listeners, or some at least, are familiar with. And then if you Google him, you're like, oh, I think pretty much everyone will be like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
I was.
recognize him.
Yeah, they will.
he's he was, one of the 20th century's, foremost American actors. And I worked with him. I was really fortunate to work on 3 or 4 different productions with him over the course of about a decade. We
Mhm.
met at Stratford in 2010, I think, or 11. And we just sort of really took a shine to each other. And I, excuse me, I worked with him on The Homecoming, the Pinter play, and then Waiting for Godot, the Beckett play at Stratford, and then went to uh, went to New Haven in Connecticut and worked on Crap's Last Tape, the Samuel Beckett play, and then he was going to Chicago to the the Goodman to do Eugene O'Neill's 5 hour classic that he had already done called The Iceman Cometh. He'd won a Tony in the role of Hickey in that play, but he was going to play a different character at the Goodman, and Nathan Lane was playing Hickey. And I remember
Cool.
getting a voicemail from, it was amazing, from Brian saying, hey, kid, I think you should come down to Chicago. I think you should work on this play with us. And I was like, yeah, yeah. As I'm listening, yeah, I think I should too. He's like, Bob, the director, Robert Falls, uh, Bob, Bob's open to the idea. I don't know how much money we can get you, but if he can't get you what you need, just let me know and I'll get you the rest. And and he's like, come on down, and take your shot, kid. And I went down to Chicago and spent 5 weeks working on this incredible play with this incredible cast led by this incredible man. And when Brian passed away, it was a month into the pandemic, April 15, 2020. And I just started writing the song Horse Racket kind of immediately,
Mhm.
based on things that he'd said to me, quotes from characters in plays that he'd done, text messages he'd sent me. It was a pastiche of our relationship, and it wasn't ready for Artefact, didn't fit,
Mhm.
and I kept working on it, and now here it is, on New Kind of Familiar.
Amazing. So beautiful that you're able to put that all together in memory as well. So
Oh yeah, man.
excellent. Well, thank you for your time. We'll play off with the horse racket, and everybody out there now can go out and get their tickets. But there's
There you
only a
go.
limited amount, so do it like
There's not many.
immediately.
There's not many.
And we'll definitely be talking again soon.
I really appreciate it. This was a great chat, Darcy. Thanks, man.
Thanks again. Bye.
Right on.
It's a horse racket, as O'Neill used to say. I rode it good day for a lot of years, had some fun along the way. I think I might have even left a mark of some kind. Getting poetic now, getting poetic now, getting poetic now. I think it's almost time. I think it's almost time. If you can't see me, kid, it's because of the crowd. Hurry up, I might sneak away next time you're on scout. Listen, pal, you're a young man, so go get drunk and go get laid. I'm an old man shuffling half steps towards the grave and getting poetic now. Getting poetic now. Getting poetic now. I think it's almost time. I think it's almost time. White lights come crawling, the sun tears through the shades. They come crawling, and the sky's baked in clay. There's nothing more terrible, there's nothing more true or terrible. Oh no, there's nothing, it's a horse racket. It's a horse racket. It's a horse racket, as O'Neill used to say. And I had some fun along the way. Getting poetic now. Getting poetic now. This misbegotten mad lot of us.
Getting poetic now.
But this whole mad lot